1 month ago, on a rain-slicked street, my mother and I got a bite to eat, but on the way back I slipped and fell, and I suppose the car coming didn't see me well, because the next thing I knew, as I lifted my head, I was starting to see the sheets of a hospital bed. I could not move my legs nor my right arm. My left was okay, it escaped from harm. My mother came in with a frown and then said, "Honey, I'm afraid you'll never walk again." A feeling came over me, not the saddest or hate, but instead overwhelming apathy took place. Oh well, I thought, I guess I'm done. My life is over before it's even begun. But the next day my mom approached me with a smile and said that with luck I'd only stay here for a while, and then it feeling returned to my legs, I could come back home with her and start my life again. Well, that filled me with hope and optimism quite bright, and perhaps my stay here would even be alright. The month passed by rather pleasantly. It'll save you the details of how I went to pee. Most of my actions needed the assistance of a nurse, but really I was just glad to not be in a hearse. A reporter came to my room to tell my story. I think he was expecting something a little more gory. The trapegia of 14-year-old kid was something sadly couldn't be hid. My nurse was kindly, pretty, and gentle. She helped me get through that month without getting going mental. She even gave me a book to read about a shipwrecked sailors whose captain couldn't lead. I learned on that day that a human tasted like pork. The captain got eaten, but he was kind of a jerk. The nurse was very good at helping me cope with my condition, but when she was gone, I sometimes felt a suspicion, sometimes like I was being watched. But I shooed that from my mind and instead stared at the clock. One thing that bothered me was the sheet on my legs. They hooked tubes up to me so that I'd never left the bed. But I could not reach down for the sheet to be pulled, so I could not see my legs, my once useful tools. At the end of that month, I'm supposed to go home, but more often than not, I'm simply left alone. The female nurse does not come anymore. Instead, a crueler face comes through the door. His face is all pudgy. He wears an apron, thus always filthy and wrinkled like bacon. He gives me my food 3 times a day, and he cooks all my food in all the same ways. He grills it whether it should be or not, grilled meat, grilled veggies, and here's food for thought. He served me some cereal once, and I swear to God, he even grilled the cornflakes. How odd. Sometimes, while eating one of his grilled meals, he would stand in a corner and try not to conceal the smile that spread across his whole fat face before noticing my horror and running out of the place. I told my mom to ask about this weird guy. She said the hospital had this reply. He's both a nurse and a cook, one of the best. But while applying for the job under a name he put chef. So everyone simply calls him by that name. He may look threatening, but he's really quite tame. I took to let that ease my fear, but I started having an awful nightmares. His face appeared, looking like pudgy rubber, and all the while he stared at my mother. His eyes were planted firmly at her hips, and all the while he was licking his lips. Thinking of Chef filled me with horror, and when he came to serve me, his meat became rawer. It was still appetizing, but just barely, and with every day he seemed more and more hairy. My mom normally visits every day at noon. She insists on seeing me in my hospital room. She's never late, she's always on time. She treats being late like a capital crime. But today, for some reason, she's a few minutes late. If I ever did something like that, she'd be irate. Chef comes in and serves me some meat. I take a look at his disgusting bare feet and eat the food, and there's nothing else to try. And when I realized the taste, I nearly die. The food I was eating was clearly not pork, yet the taste was known as it was through my fork. I was eating something else. I knew it had to be true. I threw the plate aside and my guts I spewed. I vomited and vomited. As I did, I cried. Was I eating my mother? Had she really died? You killed my mom and made me eat her too? I yelled with all the force I could bring to myself too. Chef looked at me with an emotionless face. My one good arm shot up the intent to erase his expression, his presence, his existence on this earth, but my first just bounced off his impressive girth. At that moment my mother rushed into the room and I said, "What's all the screaming? You sound like a loon." I looked at my mother, there in the flesh, and never felt more relieved, and I got back my breath. My mom was okay. I was overreacting. Staying in this bed all day had my sanity retracting. Everything was alright now that she was here. There was nothing to fret and nothing to fear. I gave my mom news in the usual way. Chef left, but then returned midday. When he did, I tried to apologize. I said, I know what I did was awfully unwise. I am really am sorry for freaking out, but not moving from this bed made me a little paranoid lout. Chef grinned at me with the black gums and missing teeth, which then retracted like a sword in a sheath. He walked over to my legs that were covered by the sheet and scrawled, I was hoping you'd enjoy my little treat. He pulled off the sheet and my legs were gone. It, it said if they'd been cut off by a saw, a bloody pool where they once lay. I yelled out in horror and tried to get away, but he leaned over and grabbed my chest. He leaned in so close I could smell his foul breath. He said all that meat on your legs was going to rot, and I would have never cooked a woman in such a poor health. Besides, watching you eat your own mother is not half exciting as watching you eat yourself.